So we're going to talk about how to submit a conference talk. And I want to really dispel that. I want to make sure it's known that it's not a complicated process to submit a talk. And I know it's very scary. You think submitting a conference talk, there's going to be a lot of people there. There will be people there for sure, whether virtual or in person. But the process to submit a talk doesn't have to be scary. And I want to go through how I do it. I really haven't submitted many conference talks, but I'm going to be doing some this year for Thunder Plains, and that's kind of what spawned this talk. I want to show how you could do that, for example, for Thunder Plains and beyond. So as we get into that, I'm Aaron Krauss. I like tea, I like cocktails, I like longboarding. If anybody likes to talk about these things, I would love to join that conversation. And I get very, very deep in my tea obsession there. So we'll save that for another talk. I've been a developer in Oklahoma City since about 2011 or so, and it's been awesome working here. I am currently the technical lead of new development at a company called Clever, which is where we host the OKC WebDevs meetups when they're in person. So this is a new role for me. I've been doing a lot of fun stuff, and I would love to chat about that if that's interesting to you, or if you have any interest in Clever, I can chat about that all day long. We're predominantly a software consulting company that we have some products on the way too. So back to the talk, how to submit a conference talk. There's like a 3-step process that I'm going to outline here. And the first one is find a topic that you want to learn about. And I want to very much focus on that learning about, something that's going to motivate you to want to learn about it, and something that's going to want to challenge you. Now that's all one item, something that you want to learn about, it's going to motivate you, it's going to challenge you. But notice how I'm leaving out something that you might think is pretty key, which is notice how I'm not saying you have to be an expert in it. Notice how we're talking about submitting the conference talk. To submit a talk that you want to give, you don't have to necessarily be an expert in it at the time of submission. And I'm going to get into why that is, because I think this is one of the first myths that I really want to bust. So just focus on what you want to learn and what's going to make you better than you were the day before. So the next thing is you want to match those things that you want to learn with the goals of the conference. So not every conference is going to match up identically with what you want to learn. So for Thunder Plains, for example, that's coming up in October, we'll talk about the exact dates. Thunder Plains is predominantly a front-end conference. So if I wanted to talk about some back-end heavy type stuff, some machine learning type topics, those might get approved. That might be a thing. But in general, I might try to stick with the theme of the conference. It's kind of like if you go to RubyConf, you'll probably want to stick with Ruby as a programming language. And lastly, and this is the biggest thing I really want to focus on, don't write the whole talk before you submit it. That's like the quickest way to burn yourself out. You don't have to write a whole talk before you even submit it, because what's going to happen is it's going to have to go through an approval process. And what if your talk doesn't get approved? That's just a shot to your motivation. It'll make you not want to do this again. Instead, start focusing on that first item. What do you want to learn about? What's interesting to you, and then submit that talk. You don't have to write the whole talk beforehand, and you shouldn't, because that's not how I would recommend doing it. Let's actually get into some examples. So for me, I personally want to learn a few different things, and those things are Svelte.js is one. If anyone's familiar with Vue or React or Angular, some of those big SPA frameworks, single page application frameworks, Svelte is another example of one of those. I'd say it's probably number 4 right now. It's very cool, and I don't know it. I would love to build something with it. So I want to learn this. This is not something that I know right now. Three.js is another one of those things. It's a 3D rendering tool for the web. If anyone's followed along in Code Newbies or 100 Days of Codes, I started learning a little bit about this a couple months ago, and I've fallen off a little bit, so I want to motivate myself to keep learning about this. I know a little bit about accessibility. We're talking about web accessibility here, but it's been a few years since I've really had to dig into it, so I want to refresh myself on this. And lastly, I've got one other topic, GitOps. So Gabe, who's our streamer, gave a talk. We gave a talk about this at OKC WebDevs in April, where we touched on GitOps, and we're going to be talking about it in October at InnoTech this year. So maybe that overlaps with Thunder Plains. It probably doesn't, but I might submit it anyway. So those are 4 different things that I'm interested in that I think I'm going to submit to Thunder Plains. I want to show you how to do that. So how do you submit? So first thing, you just go to thunderplains.conf, and we're going to go to my browser here, and we're going to go to thunderplains.conf, and that's it. And if you view this page before the call for speakers is closed, you can click on call for speakers, and that will take you to a website, papercall.io. Now you'll have to log in. I logged in here. Thunder Plains call for papers, call for proposals, whatever CFP actually stands for. closes at August 31st at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So that's a big time zone to note. But what you'll do is you'll actually go to create a talk, and then you'll submit it for Thunderplane. So we're not going to go through exactly how to do that here, but with the UI, you can mostly figure that out. But I want to show you what a talk actually looks like. So I've submitted one officially for Thunderplanes, this Svelte.js talk. I have not submitted this talk, and I don't have those two other ones at all anywhere. So I just kind of want to show, let's just look at what an example was of what I had to actually build to submit a full talk. I had to provide a really quick elevator pitch. I shared a description of what I'm going to talk about. And then I'm just going to mention some notes that I optionally can provide. And that's really it. I have to provide some tags, so you can kind of see some of the tags here. But this is all I have to do to submit a talk. I don't have to upload slides. I don't have to give a whole outline of what I'm going to be talking about. That's all done after the approval process. So I'm not quite sure when the approval process is, but once that actually happens, if any of my talks were to get approved, then I would actually start really building the talk at that point. The only reason I would build it sooner is if I was going to give this talk anyway at another event. But I want to show this is literally all the information you have to provide. And it's kind of that easy. Kind of going to my 3JS project, I haven't even finished it, even with how easy it is. So I'll do this a few times. Again, to get to this point, you just go to thunderplanesconf.com, click on that CFP, they're the call for speakers, and you'll just go through this. It is very easy. The approval process happens, and then you'll get notified one way or the other with plenty of time to write a talk. I'm talking about, at a minimum, a full month, if not a month and a half or more. And that's it. It really is nothing too scary. And kind of coming back to this, the too long didn't read of this whole talk is when you submit a conference talk, you're submitting an idea. You're submitting a little bit of information with an idea. You are not submitting a full talk. So I want to kind of break down all the barriers. I know there's probably a thought of I need to be the ultimate expert if I'm ever going to talk about this at a conference. And truth be told, when you're building your talk, you do need to do the research and you do need to talk comfortably about it. But just to submit a talk, you can submit anything that interests you. And if it gets picked, then make sure you're comfortable following up with that and doing some research. But submitting is, I really want to encourage anyone to submit if there's an interest. And Thunderplanes right now is looking for talks, so just keep that in mind. And lastly, you have a while to build that full talk. I mentioned, minimum of a month. A lot of the times it's months out in advance, so you have plenty of time. So that's it for this lightning talk. Again, I work at Clever. Clever is actually going to be at InnoTech 2022, and that's going to be on October 19th. So that's we're a few months out from that now. And I think that's going to be at the Oklahoma City Convention Center, the new one downtown, which is pretty cool, which is actually the same place that Thunderplanes is going to be. And Thunderplanes is going to be on Friday, October 28th, 2022. So whether you submit a talk or not, just keep that in mind. I believe tickets are available. Again, talks are definitely available for submission, so please consider that. And the CFP closes August 31st, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you're not in the Central Time Zone, keep that in mind, but it is not a midnight on that date if you live in the Central Time. I believe that's it. That's me, Aaron Krauss. I'm the codeboss.dev, and I'm the code boss on many handles. So that is it. I really hope everyone thinks about submitting a talk. And if you don't this time, then I hope I've at least shared that it's not as scary of a process as it might seem to be. So that is it. Thanks, everyone.